What is going on, guys? Welcome to Test This Tech, and I wanted to talk about the Snapdragon 865 chipset here because I'm thinking about getting another device, Android device in the family. I used to have the O2, but I had to bring it back just because of a weird analog input issue I was having with the left stick. But I was watching just some videos, specifically Ryan Retro's video doing the Switch comparison, Switch games comparison with three different chipsets: the 8 Elite, the HN2, and the Snapdragon 865. And I was just really impressed with how far up how much of a weight it punches, it punches above its weight when it comes to the power of the chipset optimization, I think, as well. So shout out to Ryan Richo first and foremost. I'll put the link of the video in the description. So if you are looking for an Android device and want to make sure that, for certain chipsets, which is more powerful, etc., you'll be able to check it out. But it just goes to show as far as for how well that chip is aged, right? Because we all know that chipset from, the Retro Pocket 5, the Flip 2. It's even on the AYN Thor the Lite. The AYN Thor the Lite model, which is the very first model, which most people don't get, and I understand why. Just because if you are doing a dual screen setup, why not have a dual screen setup with a chipset that's going to be more powerful to support both screens? I completely understand. But I think it also begs the question as far as, okay, well, what are you running on that chipset? Right? There's always a funny joke when it comes to, say, those who have really powerful PCs, but they ended up playing like games that are 20 years old, or just like indie games, things of that nature, where it's like you paid all this money for this PC and you're playing like, games where you could have paid $500 less or whatever the case may be, right? And I'm a PC player, so I can clown on myself here. But when it comes to these Android devices, I'm a big fan of Android, and I've been looking at another Android device to add to the collection. Have a Steam Deck, have a ROG Ally, the OG ROG Ally. So looking at the 865, I'm just really impressed with this optimization for it still being a pretty decent option to choose from, even though, HN2 is around, G3 Gen 3 is around. But what are you using it for? What are you using it for? For me, I've been doing a lot of PC emulation when it comes to Game Hub, a little bit of Game Native, but I tend not to get a whole lot of success with Game Native when it comes to the games running on there. And then WinLater, not a whole lot of WinLater, so mainly Game Hub for me. And I think if you are planning on doing a lot of PC emulation, I would say, unfortunately, I think the Snapdragon 865, I would stray away from it and consider the HN2, just because you're going to need you're going to need as much power as you need, especially depending on what PC games you want to play, right? I think that's where the Odin 3 is exciting, because once they get better driver support for the Odin 3, it's going to be a powerhouse when it comes to PC emulation, especially if you get one with the higher RAM. So for me, I'll go for the insane Ultra model for the Odin 3, 24 gigs of RAM, terabyte of storage. Like, let's go. You're going to need those specifications depending on which games you want to PC emulate. The HN 2 is nice for Game Hub as well, especially if you're doing old school. I call them old school games because I was playing those growing up. So like Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, like the Tomb Raiders, like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, like that particular Tomb Raider series. The HN2 is going to work really nice with those, and a lot of those aren't a whole lot of space, especially when it comes to those games, downloading them. But the 865 is really nice if you're doing Switch emulation still, which is really impressive, especially with the support that Eden has done, the work that Eden's done over the years, Citron. And then obviously, like when it comes to PS2, GameCube, most of those games will run. Most of those have you covered with the 865. You don't necessarily need, the Gen 2, HN2, or an Elite, if you're just going to be playing those games. I mean, hell, even the Dimensity 8300, the Ambernick has, those will, kick butt when it comes to PS2, GameCube. So it's just all a use case thing. But at the end of the day, I was thinking about getting a Flip 2, which is why the 865 was a topic of conversation. I want to do this video because I was seeing certain YouTube videos where the 865 was outperforming the 8 Gen 2, but obviously it's not really more of a performance outperforming. It's more so of a driver support optimization and just how compatible the 865 still is within the family of Snapdragon and within emulation and things like that. So I just found a really interesting topic of conversation. I'm thinking about getting a Flip 2 just because I would like to have a device like that where both sticks are on top. And I know the device is, a solid device, alongside with all of these other devices. I know that's a solid one. So I think I might consider that. But anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know if you have any questions or just what your thoughts are when it comes to the 865. If you're still thinking about getting a Flip 2 if you haven't already, or is the AOI and Thor going to replace that? But anyway, test this tech. I'll catch you guys next video. Thanks a lot.